I built an empire in the fields, but destroyed my chance to be happy. Before I say another word, I need you to stop and answer this question honestly. What are you sacrificing right now that you'll regret on your deathbed? Your marriage? Time with your kids? A chance at love? Because I sacrificed everything for land and cattle, and now at 69 years old with a failing heart, I'd give every single acre, every dollar, every award I ever won just to have one person who loves me sitting next to my hospital bed. If you think success means money and property, you need to watch this until the very end, because I'm about to show you what real success looks like. And spoiler alert, it's not what I have. Hit that like button right now if you've ever put work before the people you love. Comment below and tell me what you're prioritizing. That might be the wrong thing. Share this video with anyone who's building an empire but forgetting to build a life. And don't you dare click away, because in about 40 minutes, I'm going to tell you about the moment last week when I realized I'd destroyed everything that actually mattered, and it's going to shake you to your core. Now listen to my story and learn from my catastrophic mistakes. My name is Thomas Edward Hutchinson. I'm 69 years old. I own 11,000 acres of prime farmland in Nebraska. I run one of the most successful cattle operations in the entire state. My Angus cattle have won awards at state fairs for 15 consecutive years. My facilities are state-of-the-art, everything modern and efficient. I gross several $1 million annually. The local newspaper did a feature on me last year calling me the region's agricultural king. I have plaques and trophies and certificates covering an entire wall in my office. I'm respected, admired, successful by every conventional measure. And I'm the most miserable, broken, regret-filled human being you'll ever encounter, because I built this empire by destroying every chance I ever had at happiness. I traded love for land, family for cattle, connection for profit. And now I'm paying a price so steep I can barely breathe under the weight of it. Let me take you back to where it started. I was born in 1955 on a small farm outside of Lincoln, Nebraska. My father, Edward Hutchinson, owned 200 acres. It wasn't much, just enough to make a modest living raising some cattle and growing corn. We weren't poor, but we weren't comfortable either. My father worked himself nearly to death keeping that farm going. I watched him struggle my entire childhood, watched him worry about money, watched him age prematurely from the stress and physical labor. He died when he was only 62, worn out and exhausted. I was 27 when he passed. At his funeral, standing over his grave, I made a promise. I promised myself I would never struggle like he did. I would never worry about money. I would build something bigger, something successful, something that would honor his memory and his sacrifice. That promise became my entire existence. It consumed me. It drove every decision I made for the next 42 years, and it destroyed me. When I inherited those 200 acres, I immediately started planning expansion. I worked like a man possessed. 18, 20 hours a day sometimes. I was young, strong, full of energy and ambition. I took out loans to buy neighboring properties when they became available. I reinvested every penny of profit back into the operation. Within 5 years, I doubled the size of the farm to 400 acres. Within 10 years, I had 800. The growth was exhilarating, intoxicating. Every new acre felt like validation. Every increase in the herd felt like success. I was building something. I was honoring my father. I was winning. But I was also alone, completely, utterly alone. And I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself relationships were distractions, that I'd have time for that later, that I needed to focus on building the foundation first, and then I could think about personal life. That was the lie I fed myself, the lie that poisoned everything. I was 29 years old when I met Rebecca Caldwell. She was 26, had just moved to the area to teach at the elementary school in town. We met at church, which I attended sporadically at the time, mostly for social appearances. She was beautiful in this understated way. Brown hair, warm eyes, a gentle smile that made me feel calm in a way nothing else did. We started talking after services. Then we started having coffee together, then proper dates. Rebecca was everything I didn't know I needed. She was patient with my awkwardness around emotional topics. She found my dedication to the farm admirable rather than off-putting. She'd come out to the property and help with small tasks, talking to me while I worked, making the labor feel less solitary. After 6 months, I was in love with her, really, truly in love. I'd think about her constantly, dream about her, imagine a life with her. She loved me too. I know she did because she told me. One evening, sitting on my porch watching the sunset, she took my hand and said, "Tom, I love you. I can see a future with you. I want to build a life together." And every fiber of my being wanted to say yes, wanted to propose right then and there, wanted to make her my wife and start the family she clearly wanted, but I didn't, because I'd just been presented with an opportunity to buy 300 more acres from a neighbor who was retiring. It was prime land, perfectly positioned adjacent to my property. The deal required all my capital and taking on significant debt. And I convinced myself I couldn't handle both, couldn't manage a new marriage and this expansion simultaneously. So I asked Rebecca to wait, told her I needed 2 years to get this expansion settled, to get financially stable, and then we could move forward with our relationship. She looked at me with such disappointment. "Tom, there's always going to be another expansion, another opportunity, another reason to wait. If you love me, we'll figure out the rest together. That's what partners do." But I was stubborn, convinced I knew better, convinced I needed to build security first, so I insisted on waiting. Rebecca gave me 1 year. She said she'd wait 1 year, but no longer. She was 27 years old and wanted to start a family while she was still young. I agreed, thinking a year would fly by. It didn't. That year I worked harder than ever before. The expansion consumed me entirely. I barely saw Rebecca. When we did spend time together, I was exhausted, distracted, thinking about the farm. Our relationship deteriorated from neglect. When the year was up, Rebecca came to me and asked if I was ready to get married. I wasn't. The expansion had taken longer than expected, was more expensive than projected. I was stressed and overwhelmed. I asked for another 6 months. Just 6 more months to get things stable. Rebecca's face went from hopeful to devastated. She shook her head slowly and said, "I can't do this anymore, Tom. I can't keep waiting for you to make me a priority. I love you, but I love myself too much to accept being second place to land and cattle." She left, moved back to Omaha within a month. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she met someone else within 6 months. They were married a year later. She had 3 children with him. I saw her once about 10 years ago at a state fair. She was there with her husband, her grown kids and several grandchildren. She looked happy, content, fulfilled. She saw me too, gave me a polite smile and a small wave, but didn't come over to talk. I stood there watching her family, this big, loving, connected group of people, and realized that could have been my family. Those could have been my children, my grandchildren, but I chose 300 acres instead. After Rebecca, I buried myself even deeper in work, told myself it was for the best, that I wasn't cut out for relationships anyway, that the farm was my purpose. And the farm did grow. By the time I was 35, I had 1,200 acres. By 40, 2,000. By 45, 4,000. The operation was becoming genuinely impressive. I was making serious money, building a reputation, becoming someone important in agricultural circles. When I was 41, I met Catherine Morris. She was 38, had never been married, worked as an agricultural consultant. We met at a cattlemen's association meeting. She understood farming and ranching in a way Rebecca never had. She could talk about breeding programs and grazing rotation and market strategies. We connected on an intellectual level immediately, started seeing each other regularly. She'd come out to the farm often, offering professional advice that actually helped improve my operation. After a year of dating, Catherine brought up the future. She was pragmatic about it, said she was 39, time was running out if she wanted kids, and she needed to know if this relationship was going somewhere. I cared about her deeply. Maybe not the same passionate love I'd felt for Rebecca, but something real and meaningful. But I just started an aggressive expansion plan, was in the process of buying another 1,000 acres, had taken on massive debt, was stressed beyond belief managing it all. I told Catherine I needed time, that I was in the middle of something crucial for the business. that once this phase was complete, we could talk seriously about marriage. She was more understanding than Rebecca had been. Said she'd give me 2 years since she understood the complexity of what I was doing, but she made it clear. 2 years was the absolute limit. Those 2 years, I barely saw her. The expansion was brutal. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Equipment failures, a disease outbreak in part of the herd, market prices dropping. I was drowning in work and stress. Catherine tried to be supportive, but I pushed her away, told her I needed to focus, that I couldn't handle the emotional demands of a relationship on top of everything else. When the 2 years were up, I still wasn't ready, still wasn't stable, still wasn't in a place where I felt I could take on marriage. Catherine looked at me with something like pity when I asked for more time. She said, "Tom, I've wasted 2 years waiting for you to be ready. I'm 41 years old now. Even if we got married tomorrow, having children is probably impossible at this point. You took that from me. From us, I can't forgive that." She walked away and I never saw her again. Heard she moved to Colorado, married a rancher out there, became stepmother to his kids from a previous marriage. At least she got some version of the family she wanted, even if it wasn't with me. I should have learned from losing Catherine, should have realized I was repeating the same destructive pattern. But I didn't. I just kept working, kept expanding. The farm grew to 6,000 acres, then 8,000, then 10,000, then 11,000. The herd grew proportionally. The profits grew. My reputation grew. Everything grew except my capacity for human connection. I'm 69 years old now and I've never been married. Never had a serious long-term relationship beyond those 2 failed attempts. Never made love to anyone. I'm a virgin. A 69-year-old millionaire virgin. That sentence is so pathetic, it makes me want to die of shame every time I think about it. I built an empire, but I've never experienced one of the most fundamental human connections. Never felt that intimacy. Never shared that vulnerability with another person. Never knew what it's like to be that close to someone. The loneliness is indescribable. It's not just being alone physically, though that's awful enough. It's being alone in every possible way. Emotionally alone, spiritually alone, existentially alone. I come home every single day to an empty house, eat dinner alone, watch television alone, go to bed alone, wake up alone, day after day after day for decades. The silence is deafening. The emptiness is crushing. I watch my neighbors, and I see what I'm missing. The Johnsons down the road, they're in their 70s. I see them on their porch sometimes, holding hands, still obviously in love after 50 years of marriage. They have 4 kids, 12 grandchildren. Their house is always full of life and noise and activity. The Millers on the other side, similar story. Big family, always together, always laughing and loving each other. And then there's me, alone in my big house surrounded by my big property with my big bank account. Rich and utterly miserable, I tried dating again in my 50s, used one of those online services, went on several dates with different women. It was humiliating. I didn't know how to act, didn't know what to talk about beyond farming, didn't understand the social dynamics of dating, and every woman I met could sense something was off about me. This successful rancher who'd never been married, who clearly had no experience with relationships, most of them politely declined a second date. A few were more blunt, telling me I seemed emotionally unavailable or too focused on work. They weren't wrong. There was one woman, Margaret, who I dated for about 4 months when I was 53. She was 50, a widow, patient and kind. We'd have dinner together, go to movies, simple, pleasant things. I thought maybe this could work. Maybe I could finally build something with someone. But when she started talking about getting more serious, about possibly moving in together, I panicked, started finding excuses not to see her, started pulling away. She confronted me about it, and I admitted I wasn't sure I could handle sharing my space, my life with someone else. She said I was too set in my ways, too controlled by my routines, too married to my farm to ever really be married to a person. She was absolutely right. My health started failing about 5 years ago. First it was just fatigue, which I attributed to age, then chest pains. Went to the doctor and found out I have severe coronary artery disease. My heart is weak. damaged from years of stress and poor self-care and probably genetics. The cardiologist said I'd already had at least one minor heart attack that I hadn't even realized was happening. He put me on medication, told me to reduce stress, told me to make lifestyle changes. I had another episode 2 years ago. More serious, actual heart attack that required hospitalization. They did an angioplasty, put in stents, kept me for observation. The cardiologist was very serious when he talked to me afterwards, said my heart was significantly damaged, that another major event could be fatal, that I needed to get my affairs in order. Asked if there was family he should contact, someone to help take care of me during recovery. I had to tell him no. No wife, no children. No close family, just me. He looked shocked. This successful man lying in a hospital bed with no one to call, no emergency contact except my lawyer. The nurse asked who would be picking me up when I was discharged. I said I'd drive myself home. She looked like she might cry. They can't legally force someone to have a support system, so they had to let me leave alone. I drove myself back to my empty house and recovered alone. That was my wake-up call. Lying in that hospital bed, facing my own mortality, realizing there was no one who would genuinely mourn if I died. Sure, people in town would say nice things. Business associates would attend the funeral out of respect, but no one would be truly devastated. No widow crying over losing her husband. No children grieving their father. No grandchildren confused about why Grandpa was gone. Just an empty funeral for an empty life. Since then, the fear has been constant. I'm terrified of dying alone. And I mean that literally. I'm terrified that I'll have another heart attack here at the house and no one will find me for days. I live alone on this massive property. My nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away. I could die in my bed and it might be 3 or 4 days before anyone noticed I wasn't answering my phone or showing up to meetings. The thought of my body lying here decomposing until someone eventually comes to check on me is a horror that keeps me up at night. I've had panic attacks, real, debilitating panic attacks. They started after the heart attack, usually hit in the middle of the night. I'll wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning with my heart racing, can't breathe, convinced I'm dying right then. And the terror isn't just about death itself, it's about dying alone, about taking my last breath with no one there. No hand to hold, no comforting voice, just me and the darkness and the crushing loneliness. I've called 911 twice during these panic attacks, convinced I was having another heart attack. Both times the paramedics came, checked me out, said it was anxiety. One of the paramedics, a young woman maybe 30 years old, was very gentle with me, asked if there was someone who could come stay with me, help me feel safer. When I said no, there was no one, she looked so sad. She gave me her card and told me to call if I needed help. That kindness from a stranger almost broke me completely. The regret is a physical thing. I feel it in my chest, in my gut, in my bones. Every single day I wake up, and the regret is there. All the chances I had. Rebecca, who loved me genuinely and wanted to build a life with me. Catherine, who understood me and was willing to wait. All the smaller opportunities over the years that I let pass because I was too focused on the farm. Every single one of them represents a life I could have had but chose not to pursue. I think about Rebecca constantly. She'd be 66 now. If I'd married her, we'd have been together for 40 years. We probably would have had 3 or 4 kids, based on what she wanted. Those kids would be in their 30s now, maybe early 40s. They'd have their own children. I'd be a grandfather. I'd have this whole family, this whole network of people who loved me and who I loved back. Instead, I have land. 11,000 acres of land that doesn't love me back, doesn't care if I live or die, will be sold to strangers when I'm gone. I drive by Rebecca's old house sometimes. Someone else lives there now, has for decades. But I remember the times I'd pick her up for dates, how happy she'd look when she saw me, how she'd kiss me goodbye at the end of the evening. I remember thinking she was my future, and then I chose to have a different future, a lonelier future, a richer but emptier future. The worst part is knowing it's my fault, completely, entirely my fault. No one forced me to prioritize the farm over relationships. No one held a gun to my head and made me choose expansion over love. I did this to myself. Every decision, every choice, every time I put work ahead of people, that was me. I can't blame circumstances or bad luck or other people. this catastrophic failure of a life, is 100% my own doing. I've thought about trying to find Rebecca, looked her up online, found her Facebook profile. She's still married, still has that same warm smile in her photos, surrounded by her family in every picture, grandkids on her lap, husband's arm around her shoulders. She looks happy, content, like she built exactly the life she deserved. I thought about sending her a message, apologizing, telling her she was right about everything. But what would be the point? To disrupt her happiness with my regret? To make myself feel better by unburdening my guilt onto her? That would be selfish. So I just look at her pictures sometimes and imagine what could have been. I tried therapy about a year ago, found a therapist in Lincoln, drove the hour each way for weekly sessions, told him everything, the failed relationships, the obsession with the farm, the crushing loneliness, the fear of dying alone. He listened patiently, asked good questions. After several sessions, he said something that hit me hard. He said, "Tom, you used work as a shield against vulnerability. You convinced yourself that success in farming was more important than emotional risk. But success without connection is just impressive loneliness." Impressive loneliness. That phrase haunts me, because that's exactly what I have. Impressive, award-winning, newspaper feature-worthy loneliness. A loneliness so profound it's become my defining characteristic. I'm not Tom the husband, not Tom the father, not Tom the grandfather. I'm just Tom the successful rancher who's completely alone. The therapy helped me understand my mistakes, but understanding doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give me back the years I wasted, doesn't resurrect the relationships I destroyed, doesn't create the family I never built. It just makes me more aware of how thoroughly I ruined my own life. After 6 months, I stopped going. The insight was making me more depressed, not less. Let me ask you something, and I really want you to think about this and answer in the comments. What are you running from by staying busy? What emotional truth are you avoiding by throwing yourself into work? Because I convinced myself I was running toward success, but I was really running away from vulnerability, from the risk of being hurt, from the possibility of loss, and that running cost me everything that actually matters. Write in the comments what you're avoiding. Be honest with yourself in a way I never was. My heart condition has gotten worse. Had another scare 3 months ago, less severe than the big one 2 years ago, but still serious. Spent another night in the hospital, another discharge with no one to pick me up, another drive home alone, another recovery period alone. The cardiologist is very clear with me now. He says I could go at any time, that my heart is so damaged that another major event would almost certainly be fatal, that I need to prepare for that possibility. Prepare how? Write a will? I've done that. Everything goes into a trust that will sell the farm and donate the proceeds to agricultural charities and education programs. At least some good will come from it. But preparing emotionally? How do you prepare to die alone? How do you make peace with the fact that you destroyed your own chance at happiness? I don't know. I don't think there is a way. I spend a lot of time looking at the farm, this empire I built. 11,000 acres of prime land, beautiful rolling fields, top-quality cattle, modern facilities. It's objectively impressive. Strangers tour it sometimes, agricultural students or journalists, and they're always amazed. They take pictures, ask questions, marvel at what I've accomplished, and I feel nothing but bitterness, because this empire cost me everything. If I could go back, if I could talk to 29-year-old Tom standing at that crossroads with Rebecca, I'd tell him to marry her immediately, to forget about the extra 300 acres, to understand that land is just land, but love is life, to recognize that 50 years of happiness with Rebecca would be worth more than 50 years of expanding acreage, that the true empire worth building is a family, not a farm. But I can't go back. Time doesn't work that way. I can only move forward, carrying this unbearable weight of regret until my damaged heart finally gives out and releases me from this misery. I see my neighbors with their families, and I feel this mixture of envy and grief that's almost physically painful. When the Johnsons have their family barbecues, and I can hear the laughter and children playing, I have to go inside because I can't bear it. When I see the Millers loading up their truck to go visit grandkids, I have to look away. Every reminder of what I don't have, what I'll never have, is like a knife twisting in my chest. I tried joining social groups, went to the senior center in town a few times. They have activities, game nights, dances. But walking in there as the only person without a spouse, without stories about kids or grandkids, without a shared history of family life, made me feel like an alien. Everyone else had these rich, full lives with people they loved. I had stories about cattle breeding and land acquisition. We weren't even speaking the same language. There was a widow there, Helen, who seemed interested in talking to me. She was 71, had lost her husband 5 years earlier. We had coffee a few times. She was kind, patient with my social awkwardness. But when she started talking about possibly dating seriously, I realized I couldn't do it. I'm too damaged, too broken, too far gone. She deserved someone who could actually be a partner, who knew how to be in a relationship, who hadn't spent 69 years avoiding intimacy. I stopped returning her calls. Coward that I am, I couldn't even tell her directly that I was too messed up for any kind of relationship. My daily routine is depressing in its monotony. Wake up alone, make coffee alone, eat breakfast alone, work on the farm alone, though I have employees who handle most of the physical labor now. Eat lunch alone, work more, eat dinner alone, watch television alone, go to bed alone, repeat, day after day, month after month, year after year. This is my life. This is what I chose. This is the price of my ambition. I talk to myself constantly now, full conversations where I ask questions and answer them, debates with myself about nothing important. It's a sign of how isolated I've become. The human brain needs dialogue, needs interaction. When you don't have other people to talk to, you create conversations with yourself. I know it's a form of madness, but I can't stop doing it. The farm hands notice. I can see it in their eyes. Pity. They're respectful, do their jobs well, but they pity me. This rich old man who owns everything but has nothing. They go home to their wives and kids every evening. They have lives outside of work. I stay here, alone with my impressive loneliness. I've started having dreams about Rebecca. Not memories exactly, but alternate realities where I made different choices. Dreams where I married her, where we built a life together, where I'm surrounded by children and grandchildren. I wake up from these dreams and for a moment I'm happy. Then reality crashes in and I remember it's not real, that I chose differently, that this loneliness is real and the happy family was just a dream. Those moments of transition from dream to reality are excruciating. The panic attacks are more frequent now. Used to be once every few weeks. Now it's several times a week, always at night. Always the same terror. Heart racing, can't breathe. Convinced I'm dying, convinced I'm going to die, right then and there, with no one to help me. No one to call for me. No one who would even know to check on me until days later. The terror is so intense in those moments that I sometimes wish the heart attack would just happen and get it over with. At least then the fear would end. I keep my phone next to my bed now with 911 already dialed, finger hovering over the call button, just in case. But I also wonder what's the point. If I have a massive heart attack, calling 911 might not help anyway. And even if they save me for what? More years of this lonely, regretful existence? Sometimes I think dying might actually be a mercy, an end to the fear and loneliness and regret. But I'm too much of a coward to actually want to die. I cling to life despite its emptiness, despite waking up every day to crushing loneliness, despite knowing that every day forward is just more of the same. I cling to life because it's all I have, even though what I have isn't worth clinging to. I've thought about trying to make amends somehow, track down Rebecca and Catherine and apologize properly, tell them they were right and I was wrong about everything. But what would that accomplish? It wouldn't change anything for them. They've moved on, built lives, found happiness elsewhere. My apologies would just be me trying to make myself feel better. Selfish again, always selfish, always putting my needs first. That's been the pattern of my whole life. The farm will be sold when I die. All 11,000 acres will be divided up and sold. The Hutchinson Ranch that I spent 40 years building will cease to exist probably within months of my death. Corporate farming operations will buy it up, incorporate it into their larger holdings. Erase any trace that this was once a family operation. 3 generations of work, gone. Because I have no family to pass it to. That bothers me less than you might think. Because I've realized the farm doesn't actually matter. Legacy doesn't come from land or money. Legacy comes from the people you touch, the lives you shape, the love you give and receive. By that measure, I have no legacy. I'll be forgotten within a generation. Maybe a footnote in county records. Large farm sold in 2025 or whenever I die. That's it. That's all I'll amount to. I think about my father sometimes. Wonder what he'd think of what I've built. He'd be proud of the size of the operation, the success, the awards. But would he be proud of how I built it? Would he think the cost was worth it? I don't know. He died before I really started this path of choosing work over everything else. Maybe if he'd lived longer, he would have warned me, told me not to make the same mistakes he made, working himself to death. Or maybe he would have encouraged it, having the same misguided values I developed. I'll never know. What I do know is that I've wasted my life. 70 years on this earth and I have nothing of value to show for it. Oh, I have monetary value, assets worth millions, but nothing of human value. No love given or received, no family built, no deep connections made. I've touched no one's life in a meaningful way. I'm rich and completely worthless at the same time. The fear of dying alone consumes me. It's my first thought when I wake up and my last thought before sleep. The scenario plays out in my mind constantly. Heart attack in the middle of the night, collapsing in my bed, dying slowly or quickly, but always alone. No one there. No voice saying comforting words. No hand holding mine. Just darkness and silence and loneliness, even in death. Or maybe worse, having a heart attack during the day somewhere on the property. Lying in a field or a barn, dying slowly, unable to call for help, knowing that I could be hours or days from being found. That terror is with me constantly now. I've made peace with the fact that I destroyed my own life. What I can't make peace with is that I can't fix it. There's no redemption arc coming, no third act turnaround. This is it. This is my life until my heart gives out. Alone, regretful, terrified. This is what choosing work over love gets you. This is what building an empire at the expense of building a family gets you. This is the price of impressive loneliness. Here's what I want you to understand, really understand. What are you building? Is it worth what you're sacrificing? Because I thought 11,000 acres was worth sacrificing relationships. I thought success in farming was worth never experiencing love. I thought financial security was worth dying alone. And I was catastrophically wrong about all of it. Comment below and tell me honestly what you're building and what it's costing you. Are you making my mistake right now? Share this video with someone who might be on the same destructive path I was on. Maybe my wasted life can prevent someone else from wasting theirs. Last week, something happened that crystallized everything for me. I had another medical episode, less serious than the previous ones, but scary. Chest pains that sent me to the ER. They kept me for observation overnight. Different hospital this time, different staff. The intake nurse was asking the standard questions. Emergency contact? None. Family to notify? None. Someone to stay with you during recovery? None. She kept asking these questions, each one requiring me to say no, 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 and I could see the horror growing in her eyes. Finally, she stopped typing and just looked at me. "Sir," she said gently, "you have no one? No one at all?" And I had to say it out loud. "No, I have no one." She looked like she might cry. This stranger, this nurse who'd probably forget me the next day, had more empathy for my situation than I'd had for myself over the years when I was actively creating this situation. She said, "That must be very scary." And something about her genuine compassion broke through all my defenses. I started crying, right there in the ER intake area. 69-year-old man sobbing while a nurse held my hand. I told her everything. The choices I'd made, the relationships I'd destroyed, the farm I'd built at the expense of my humanity. She listened to all of it, this stranger who had no reason to care, and she said, "It's not too late to connect with people. Even if it's not romantic relationships, you can still build connections. But she's wrong. It is too late. I'm too damaged, too broken, too far down this path. I don't know how to connect with people anymore, if I ever did. I don't know how to be vulnerable, how to let people in, how to build relationships. And I'm running out of time to learn. My heart is failing. I could die any day. There's no building connections when you're this close to the end. That night in the hospital, lying in the dark, listening to machines beep, I had a moment of absolute clarity about how completely I'd destroyed my life. This was my future. Dying in a hospital bed, surrounded by strangers who were being paid to care for me, with no one who actually loved me. That was my reward for 40 years of building an empire. Dying alone in a sterile room while my land got sold off to corporations. They discharged me the next morning. I drove myself home just like always, walked into my empty house, sat in my empty living room, and I finally fully felt the weight of what I'd done to myself. The crushing, suffocating, unbearable weight of it. I'd traded everything that makes life worth living for things that don't matter at all. And now I was stuck with the consequences. I'm Thomas Edward Hutchinson. I'm 69 years old. I own 11,000 acres of prime Nebraska farmland. I run one of the most successful cattle operations in the state. I'm worth millions of dollars. I've won numerous awards and recognition. I'm respected and admired in agricultural circles. And I'm the most miserable human being you'll ever encounter, because I built an empire and destroyed my chance to be happy. I chose land over love, cattle over connection, success over satisfaction, work over relationships. And now, I'm dying alone, terrified and full of regret, in the empire that cost me everything. Don't be me, please. Whatever you're pursuing, whatever you're building, whatever success you're chasing, ask yourself what it's costing. Ask yourself if it's worth it. Ask yourself if you'll look back from 69 years old with a failing heart and no one who loves you, and think, yes, that was worth it. Because I can tell you right now, from the depths of my lonely, regretful, terrified existence, it's not worth it. Nothing is worth dying alone. Nothing is worth destroying your chance to be happy. Nothing is worth building an empire if it means destroying your life. Choose differently than I did. Choose people over profits. Choose love over land. Choose connection over achievements. Choose life over work, before it's too late. Before you become me, 69 years old and dying alone with nothing but regret and impressive loneliness. Please, learn from my catastrophic mistakes. Don't build an empire and destroy your life. Don't be me.